name's Chris Baker with Baker DMM. This is our video digest newsletter. The topic of today's newsletter is going to be independence, technology, and connection in older age. Before we jump into our discussion, I want to read you some statistics. They state that a 2010 Investor Protection Trust survey found 40% of children of parents 65 or older are very or somewhat worried that their parents have already become or will become less able to handle their personal finances over time. And that's a huge number, that of a large amount of people that are worried about their aging parents and being able to manage their day-to-day finances. So with this video, I want to jump in to the issue, which is, people being taken advantage of and having their money taken from them in a fraudulent manner, and really having a solution which is monitoring their finances. And to dive deeper into that and kind of validate what we're discussing in the video, I have a report in front of me. It was addressed to the President of the United States, and it was created in 2016 by the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. And you can actually find a link to this report at the bottom of our video. It's a pretty long report. It's, I think, over 80 pages in total, and it covers various different areas that relate to people that are aging and to senior adults. And we're focusing on the financial portion of that. And I've gone through and kind of picked this report apart and just kind of highlighted some of the key areas to just briefly touch on them here. And then if you want to go do your own research later, you can look more in depth at the report. But so as I mentioned, the big problem is cognitive or physical impairment, or even decreased financial capacity due to normal aging, and people being unable to manage their money. And if they're unable to manage their money, that could lead them to having financial losses. And if they're losing their money, if they lose all of their money, a substantial portion of their money, it could be devastating to that person. And what happens is either the family will take over and help that person, which then possibly could strain the financial resources of the family. And then if no one else is around, then it falls to the government. And then that ultimately will strain the taxpayer, because the more people the government has to take care of, whether that's a local, state, or federal level, that means the more money they have to collect in the form of taxes. So it benefits everybody, for the people, for our population that's aging, to keep whatever financial resources they have for as long as they can. And that's really what this report, that's the primary focus, and what they're saying. And what these people need is financial monitoring. One key area that they talk about in the report is geared towards the banking and financial services sector. And they're basically advising the President of the United States to say, hey, look, you should use your powers to help influence certain laws and regulations in place, and particularly with the banking sector, and helping push more federal law and regulation into place that allows these institutions to enforce more stringent monitoring capabilities, so that when they have clients that are using their bank, if they're monitoring their clients' accounts, they can, if they see something unusual, they can actually jump in and kind of try to divert the fraudster, whoever's trying to take their money, and maybe even stop the transaction or freeze the account or do whatever they need to do to help protect their client. Because right now, the way that the laws and regulations are written, many banking financial institutions are afraid to do that because they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to jump in and interfere with a client's transactions, because they're afraid if they're wrong or they do something wrong, well, then that client can then come back and sue the bank, the financial institution, and then they could be held liable for interfering with their client's financial affairs. So they're just saying to the president, hey, let's change the laws, the regulations, let's modify things so where the banking financial institutions can actually get more involved and not be worried about getting in trouble for doing so. Another thing that they mention is for the president to convene more with the governors of each state and really try to push a more consistent reporting tool or mechanism amongst the various states, which then rolls up into the federal government database. And that's to really help with reporting on financial fraud and elder abuse. So everybody in every state should be reporting any instance of financial fraud or elder abuse to their attorney general and to the adult protective services within their state. And then when the Adult Protective Services, when they make their reports, and then they contact the local police department if necessary, and then the Attorney General, they run their, they put it in their database. All this information should funnel into one database for the state, and then it could funnel into the federal government database. And that way, the government authorities are getting more accurate data on what kind of fraud and abuse is occurring, and then they can tweak and tailor the system and whatever protective mechanisms they have in place via the government in a more accurate manner. And so that's, two of the key areas that they're really focusing on in the report. They go over some of the types of exploitation. They talk about some of the, and types of exploitation, we've actually covered that in one of our other videos. Go to our database, and I believe it's types of financial scams affecting the elderly. So if you go into our video library, you can find that video. And there's a number of different government agencies that they mention in the report. I mean, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Federal Trade Commission, the Treasury, the federal government, Federal Reserve, FDIC, the Comptroller. I mean, they just list, there's so many different organizations that are involved and that kind of have, like participate in this key area. And they're really just trying to connect everybody and bring this issue to light for all these different government agencies to help try to bring a more collective fight to this battle of financial fraud and elder abuse. And it's very, very difficult. I mean, it happens on so many different levels and so many different fronts that it's a challenge for everybody. And really, when you read all this information, there's a lot of smart people from the academia world, nonprofit, there's even some for-profit, from government. They address the issue. And one of the key things that really jumped out at me was the monitoring piece, was the financial monitoring, particularly on the bank side. And unfortunately, if you read through the article, the banks really don't have an incentive at this point to be the first kind of thought leader in that world and implementing this technology that is really there. A lot of the credit card companies already have it. If you have a credit card and they've got their logarithms and they're monitoring their accounts, and if they see something usual, particularly if you're linked up with all the technology and you've got your phone connected, you've got your email connected. I mean, you get emails, you get phone calls, you get text messages, and they say, hey, did you use this card in a different part of the world or in a different state or a different city? And they're making sure that they're not losing money to a fraudulent behavior. Well, the banks are very slowly getting on board with this and implementing this kind of technology to their customers' financial accounts. And who knows the reason why? You really just it's a crapshoot on why they're not doing it or why they haven't yet. One thing is that banks, if their customers lose money, they might in one way or another, the customer has to borrow more money, or the family has to borrow more money, or the government has to borrow more money to help now pay for that individual. And all the money comes from the Federal Reserve. So, in light of the situation, that could be one reason why, and on the flip side, the credit card companies, they're giving out credit. So they don't want to be on the hook and have to write off a bunch of bad debt if one of their customers gets ripped off. So, it's something to think about. You never know what the reasons are, but for whatever the reason, the banking institutions are slow to implement this. But that's where we jump in, and companies like Baker DMM, accountants, CPAs, other people in professional service firms providing daily money management services. These services are financial monitoring. If the company is doing what they're supposed to be doing and actually providing daily money management services, one of the key components in that is monitoring accounts, having financial reports in place, having a budget in place, and monitoring that, and being that extra set of eyes and ears and an extra voice, for their clients and families to talk to. They're making sure that this money is not, if they've got $100 utility bill and for 1 month they pay $10,000, well, why is that? What happened? Was that accurate? Was that right? Or was it fraudulent? And they're investigating that. They're getting to the bottom of it. And hopefully in a timely manner to where they can get that money back if needed. Maybe it was an accurate transaction, but if it wasn't, they're there and they can help prevent it from occurring again to where their client loses all of their money. So it's very much so on the front lines, and it's there to help protect these individuals, and it's to be keep an eye on things, make sure bills get paid accurately, monitoring financial accounts for unusual activity, giving financial advice, working with different vendors, reviewing financial mail, handling all these different areas and tasks to make sure that their clients are taken care of, and ultimately helping prevent financial fraud and elder abuse, and making sure that no one's taking their money in an unauthorized manner. And back to the independence, technology, and connection in older age, I mean, that goes right back to what these individuals wrote this report about on a very high level, directly to the President of the United States. And all those mainly focused on the banking service, financial services, and more in the government, the governor, state level, and reporting. But as you trickle on down to financial service firms like a Baker DMM and other providers out there in your community, it's exactly what we're all trying to do. And we all need to continue to work on this so we all can get on the same page and continue to help protect these individuals that are vulnerable. Because in the end, it not only benefits the older individual, but it benefits their family and friends, and it keeps on going to the government and ultimately the taxpayer. So it benefits all of us. So if you found this information interesting or helpful, please feel free to share it on all of your social media channels. This could be with your family or friends or whoever you think might benefit from viewing the information. If you'd ever like for me to answer one of your questions directly in one of our newsletters, go to our website, www.bakerdmm.com. Scroll to the bottom, fill out your information, write a few sentences, and I'll try to answer your question in one of our upcoming newsletters. If you ever like to get my help directly and personally, the quickest and easiest way is to go to our website. At the top of the page, you'll find our phone number as well as a request an appointment button. And if you scroll to the bottom, click on the PayPal button, you can book a direct phone consulting session. And with all these options, I'll be in touch with you in 24 to 48 hours. And until then, I will talk to you soon.